Greetings, citizens. Hey you beautiful creepy human being you. Welcome to my channel and welcome to today's true crime video. I'm so happy we could meet like this. I'm so happy that somehow in all of this that we're forced to deal with on the day today you and I were able to find each other on this crazy little planet that we call home. My name is Brittany or Bratterstein, whichever you prefer, and today we're going to be discussing the murder of 23-year-old Molly McLaren at the hands of her ex-boyfriend turned stalker, Joshua Stimson. But before we get started, if you have not yet had the pleasure, please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell. I put out a new video every single week, sometimes 2 a week, and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you, specifically you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack and become one of us. Alright, now before I get into the details of today's case, I first need to say a big thank you to Dossier for partnering with me on today's video. It's partners like Dossier that make it possible for me to put out videos as consistently as I do. Now, if you're not familiar with Dossier, which you should be, because I've been talking about them a while here now, don't you worry. You're about to get familiar with Dossier. Dossier is a fragrance company, and for the longest time you have heard me sing their praises. I talk about the fact that they create these wonderful perfumes that rival luxury brands both in staying power and the amazing scents that they make, but all while doing it at a fraction of their price point. Where most luxury perfumes can cost anywhere from $50 to hundreds of dollars, Dossier perfumes range from anywhere from $29 to $49, and they offer bulk deals with up to 25% off and also free shipping when you buy 3 or more bottles. So there are tons of ways for you to save your dollar bills. Y'all, and did I tell you, I'm sure if you've been here, you know that they have branched out into another area of the scent market. So today I've got this big boy to share with you, and I can smell it through the box and it smells so good. I've gotten this candle before. This is their candle in the scent Floral Rose, which is inspired by their perfume in the scent Floral Rose, which is originally inspired by the Le Labo Rose perfume, which is very popular and for a reason, because when I tell you, this smells so good. And I know rose can be like a polarizing scent, but I feel like this could even convert somebody who's opposed to rose. I'm a poet. I didn't know it. But it just smells very unique, very sophisticated. It's like an adult rose, but not like a super adult rose, you know what I mean? It's very like, I can't explain it, but it's lovely. And I think even if you don't think you like rose, I may argue that you actually do and you just haven't smelled the right rose. And let me introduce you to Floral Rose. Now, if the wonderful smell of a candle isn't a big enough selling point for you, which arguably I feel like it's the most important thing for a lot of people, something else that's like a big, they check all my boxes, Dossier does. Well, Dossier is a cruelty-free fragrance company, and most candle companies are not, and most perfume companies aren't for that matter. And that's something that's very important to me. So if you love animals and candles, really, as much as I do, this could be a perfect fit for you. So I have great news. Dossier is offering members of the Brat Pack 10% off of their whole order today. It's for a limited time, so you might want to jump on it while it's hot, but you can literally get anything you want. And you click the link in my description box and use the code Bratterstein at checkout and you'll get 10% off. So if all of that sounds as good to you as it does to me, make sure to click the link in my description box to let them know I'm the one who sent you. It really helps this channel. And use the code Bratterstein at checkout to get 10% off your new favorite candle, perfume, anything your little heart desires that smells so wonderful today. Now I would just want to say thank you to Dossier for partnering with me on today's video. It's partners like Dossier that make it possible for me to put out videos as consistently as I do. And a big thank you to you guys for always being so supportive of all of my sponsors. You rock. Don't ever change. Alright, let's go ahead and get into this video. This video is on a case out of Cobham in Kent, which is a village in England. And it's a case that I've wanted to cover for a while, and now it just felt like the right time. It's a really tragic story about a girl who met a man who she thought was going to be her partner, her equal, somebody to love, somebody to maybe help fix, and somebody who could help fix her. But instead, this man went on to try to control her life, every aspect of her life, and when she finally decided enough was enough, he relentlessly stalked her and stole her future. It's absolutely horrible, and today I'm going to tell you that entire story. I read all the things so that you do not have to, and at the end of this video I want you to answer the question of the day. I'm going to give it to you now so you can kind of have it kicking around in your brain as we go through the details, but obviously I want you to answer once you have some information to go on. But the question of the day is this: do you believe that Joshua Stimson had a mental defect at the time that he killed Molly McLaren? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below after we go through the details of this case. Now, with all of that said, come gather around and let me tell you the story of the murder of 23-year-old Molly McLaren at the hands of her ex-boyfriend turned stalker, Joshua Stimson. Now I want to start this video off with a quote. This is a quote from the judge who handled Molly's case, and this is a quote that she said to her murderer. The judge said to him, and I quote, "This was a cruel and cowardly act. This was an act of wickedness. You took away Molly's life quite deliberately in the most vicious fashion." Our story today begins on June 29th, 2018. This is when police respond to a call that leads them to the Dockside Retail parking lot in Chatham, Kent. And when they get there, they get to a very intense scene. They see a young man who's wearing shorts and what was once a white tank top that's just covered in blood, and he's pacing back and forth around a packed parking lot. Police surround and arrest the man who was identified later as 26-year-old Joshua Stimson, and he is charged for the murder of his ex-girlfriend, 23-year-old Molly McLaren, who police find stabbed to death in her car in this crowded parking lot. It's so horrible, and I cannot even imagine being a person who was in that parking lot at this time, because when I first heard about this case, I pictured it more like secluded. Like, I don't know why, I just didn't picture so many people being there. But I saw video footage, and this parking lot was packed. People saw this, people tried to stop him, but he was still able to kill Molly. So let's talk about who Molly was a little bit, how she met Joshua, and then what went on from there. Molly McLaren was born on May 26, 1994, and she was one of two children. Her and her older brother Tom were born to parents Joanne and Doug. Molly was said to be a happy person. She was warm, she was inviting, friendly, and always made everyone feel comfortable to be around her. Friends loved her, family loved her, everyone loved her. She was said to be like bouncy and lively, full of enthusiasm, and just joy and light radiated from her. She was very beautiful, but she was also very funny. Like, in her group of girlfriends, she was the jokester, and they said that there was not a single person who could meet Molly and not like her. After graduating in high school, Molly had the plans and did follow through with enrolling at the University of Kent, which was a college that was not far from her parents' house. I think it was only a couple of miles away, and she had the plans to pursue, an education in fitness. She was very into fitness. She was very into working out. She was very into like being healthy, living a healthy, active lifestyle. So at this time, she was thriving. She was in the prime of her life. She was healthy. She was going to school. She was working out. And at the same time, she was also running a blog. She had a fitness blog where she would post about like recipes, workouts. She was really into like HIIT workouts, which count me out of a HIIT workout, but she was very into it, good for her. And so she would run this blog because she had the knowledge and she wanted to share this knowledge with other people. In school, like in college, Molly was super popular. She made friends day one, and one of the friends that she made on day one was one of her best friends till the day that she died. And from there, she got like a close-knit group of friends that loved spending time together. They would, study together, party together, work out together. They all really liked working out, and they became like this close-knit group of girls who were always together, just doing college things, being college girls. They loved Molly and said that she was the type of person who could just inspire you. She inspired them and inspired everybody she came in contact with, and everything was good. She was really enjoying school, really loving her new group of friends, and was really excited about her future. So she had all this stuff going for her, but one thing that she didn't have in her life that she was kind of interested in pursuing was a man's. So Molly had, like most of the youths of the day, I believe, not a lot of dating apps. So what am I trying to say? The youths have dating apps is what I'm trying to say. But Molly did have at least a dating app, and the one that she had was Tinder. So she would go on there and she'd start swiping whatever way that one swipes when they're interested in somebody. Dating apps are before my time. I met my husband on MySpace, which wasn't necessarily a dating app, but I used it as such. But she would go on there and she'd swipe around. She would go on dates with guys, but they never really went anywhere. And that was until July of 2016. This is when she was on summer vacation after finishing her first year at the University of Kent, when she swiped right, left. She swiped in the way of, hey, you're cute, I'm cute, let's hang out. And this was on a guy, and this was 24-year-old Joshua Stimson. Immediately the two clicked, and they talked, talked on the phone for a couple of months prior to meeting just to get to know each other, and they found that the connection was pretty good. She thought he was cute, he was interested in her, she was interested in him, and over the time of talking to each other, they realized that they also had a lot in common. He loved going to the gym. He loved eating healthy, working out, taking care of himself. So since that was what Molly was into, that was definitely attractive and appealing to her. But something else that stood out to her that she really liked is that he was very open with his struggles throughout his years with his mental health. Joshua had a rougher childhood, or so it is said that he had a rougher childhood. His parents divorced when he was young, and he ended up living with his dad, and his mother just wasn't around. And this was pretty hard on him mentally. He developed depression and anxiety, both things he struggled with on and off for years, which that was true, right? He did struggle. That was documented. And he was diagnosed with those conditions. But he also told her that he struggled with bipolar disorder. And it turns out that may not have been true, which does end up mattering because later when he goes to trial, the defense really tries to hang all of its hats on this bipolar hook. And we'll see later how that works out for him. It just seems like perhaps he may have told her this and was so open with his mental health things because he wanted to appeal to her, or yeah, to me it seems like he was trying to appeal to her because Lord knows a girl loves a sad boy, especially if she has been a sad girl herself. But in truth, it is a bit manipulative in the way that he used it, in my opinion. But that's not to say that he didn't struggle, because he did. He had abandonment issues and he was seeing medical professionals since junior high to work through these issues. But these sorts of things, the issues that he had, helped him and Molly bond to each other because she and he kind of felt like they were in each other's lives for a reason, to help each other through the issues that they both suffered with. And that is because Molly had struggled with mental health issues throughout her life as well. She suffered from anxiety, she suffered from depression, and she just seemed to have a lot of trouble in her younger years with just loving herself. So growing up, Molly had an eating disorder, bulimia specifically, that she struggled with throughout junior high and high school and even a little bit of college. And it was something that she had trouble getting a handle on, but was working on getting a handle on. She was the type of person who would wake up every day and make conscious decisions. It wasn't an autopilot thing. She'd wake up and make conscious decisions to not fall into old patterns that she had struggled with when she was younger. And she would try and she would do it. She was the type of person who had the mindset that every day you had to wake up and try your best to be the healthiest version of yourself. And sometimes you failed, and that was okay because you would just wake up and try again the next day. She just thought it was very valuable that every day you wake up and try to find something good about that day. Fortunately, though, by the time she had graduated from high school and had started going to college, she was doing much better. She was the type of person who actively took steps towards trying to be a healthier person mentally and physically. She didn't just sit there passively. She was like, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to make sure that I don't let this control me. And she really had a handle on it at this point. Anyways, Josh and Molly, they meet online. They talk for a while online. They finally meet in person and they realize that the chemistry's there. The sparks are flying. So they do start dating and this becomes a legit relationship. During the early part of their relationship, Molly really felt like she loved him. She said that she had never cared about somebody quite as much as she cared about him. And he said the same thing, that he had never felt the way he did before, and it scared him how much he liked her. Molly brought him home to meet her family, and they liked him at first. He would come over often because he preferred to be at her house as opposed to wherever he lived. I actually don't know what his living situation was. I didn't look into it, but he preferred to be with her and her family, so they got to know him pretty well. He would hang out and watch sports with her dad, chat with her mom. And her mom did say that in hindsight, when she looks back, she could tell that Molly wanted love. She wanted to be in a relationship where she was loved and she could love somebody. But for Josh, she felt like he just wanted to be wanted by somebody. When Molly's friends met Josh at first, they were really happy for her. They were happy that Molly found somebody who seemed to make her so happy. Because by all accounts, they were happy. They spent a lot of time together, going to see live music, working out together at the gym, just being a couple. This was the first for Molly in a long time, and Josh said that Molly was his first real girlfriend too, but this wasn't entirely true. Okay, he had girlfriends, and he had definitely been out there trying to date and trying to find more girlfriends, but whenever he would get rejected, he'd turn into kind of a dick, to say the least. But keep that in mind because we're going to get into that a little bit later. But this is the guy that Molly is dating, and things are going really well, and they're really happy because she hasn't rejected him yet. So Molly and Josh were together a few months when little cracks started to show on the surface of their perfect relationship. And this kind of started with Molly's friends realizing that they didn't really like him that much. There was something off. They noticed that he didn't really seem to have any friends. He was always with them at social gatherings, like when they would hang out, but he never brought anybody with him, never talked about anybody else. And they started to notice that he was also like a little bit socially strange. They noticed that he was a little distant, a little surface level. He never really tried to get to know her friends. He'd be around them, but he wasn't trying to interact with them. And then they found out that he was also trying to like drive wedges between Molly and her friends and tell her that her friends weren't really that good of people, weren't really that good of friends with her. And he tried to get her to like go out less and just spend more time, just the two of them. And this was kind of cute at first, like, oh, he just wants me all to himself. I love it. I'm so loved. But like, it didn't stay cute to Molly. And after a little bit of time, she started to feel overwhelmed and suffocated because he was around her all the time. And even when she'd tell him, like, I really can't hang out right now. I've got like schoolwork to do. I've got A, I got B, I got C. I need you to go home. He wouldn't. He would like guilt her and make her feel bad about not wanting to spend time with him. Or he would just show up unannounced, even though she had told him like not to come over. And then he'd be like, it's fine. I'll just sit here and hang out and like do my own thing. I just want to be near you, baby. But then he would make her feel bad for not paying attention to him. But like, she didn't want you there, bro. That's why she told you she needed some space. So Molly finally got to the point where she was like, I need to have a conversation with him. So she sat him down and she's like, listen, I love you. I love being with you, but like, I need a little space. We can't be together 24/7. I have to have a life. I have other things going on. And he did not take this well. He got pissed. He was mean to her. He sent her some really hurtful things over text messages, but didn't like take them back. He said them with his chest. And this really hurt her. And she like showed these texts to her friends and they were blown away that he would say this kind of stuff to her because they were like, no man has ever talked to me like that. And no man will talk to me like that. You know what I mean? But they didn't break up at this point. They stayed together and he continued. He would stay around all the time, every of the time. He even quit his job so that he could spend more time with Molly. And when he texted her to tell her about this, she was like, what? And he's like, please don't be mad. But of course she was mad. How could you not be? Because she had told you she needed more space and you're giving her less space. So she finally got to the point that she was like, okay, this is not good. And she did end the relationship. And it was at this point that the harassment began. He would call her over and over. He would text her over and over, begging for her back, saying how sorry he was, saying how he would do anything to make it work. And then when that didn't work, he would flip the script, and start blaming her, blame her, and say that like her need for control and her mental health issues were why she wasn't able to get as close with him as he wanted to be with her. But she wasn't into it, and she kept her foot down, and she kept the relationship over. So at this point, he seems to sort of pivot. He seems to decide that maybe I just need to work on myself and get my life together here and stop bombarding her. But really what he was doing was quietly trying to do what he thought she wanted. He got his own life. He got a new job. He was doing so much better. But anybody who was around him at this time, like new coworkers, friends, which he didn't have many, but he had coworkers, so I guess just coworkers, said that they could tell that he wasn't doing great and he was slipping a little bit. He was angry, irrational, unpredictable, but when he would talk to Molly, he would say that he was fine, just fine, better than ever. Please come back. And sadly, it worked. She was missing him, man. She didn't end the relationship because she didn't love him. She ended the relationship because she wanted some change, and it seemed like he was changing, so she took him back. And when she told her friends about this, that she was getting back in a relationship with Josh, of course they weren't stoked, you know? When you tell your friends all the things that your boyfriend's doing to be a dick, and then you take him back, they're not going to be, like, happy about it, because you can't unring that bell. And they didn't like how he treated her, they didn't like how he talked to her, but they loved Molly, and they told her, like, we're not stoked about this, we don't think it's a great idea, but of course we're, like, gonna be here for you, it's your life. So the two got back together, and at first things seemed to be going good, but it didn't take long for him to revert back to who he was at his core. And he'd start showing up all the time, unannounced, showing up at social events that she had told him about but didn't invite him to, and just would not let her have a moment of peace. Her friends saw it, even her family saw it at this time, because there was a family event, I think it was a birthday party, and Molly decided to bring him so he could be around, you know, her immediate family, but also her extended family. She's like, you know, you're my boyfriend, this is an occasion, come with me, let's go. And so he did, and it was during this occasion that her family saw them interacting and saw how he was with her, and they were like, oh, I don't know about this. Apparently, while he was at this party with her family, he was watching Molly dance, and she was dancing with one of her cousins. And I believe it was Molly's mom, like, was watching him watch her. And she didn't like the way he was looking at her. She said that he was staring daggers into her. And the whole time during this party, he didn't loosen up. He didn't try to get to know the family. He didn't like go and interact. He was just cold and distant and to himself. And then when the family left the party, they all walked together and he like walked way ahead of them, like all pissy foots, walking ahead, being a little bitch. And then, during the same trip, apparently Josh and Molly had a hotel room together, and after the party, he just fucking lost it on her. He was screaming at her and just fighting with her, and it got so bad that Molly actually called her mom to come and help her because the fight was getting out of hand. And of course, she ran right over, and when she got there, she found an angry Josh who tried to turn it around on her and started trying to blame Molly for the whole fight, saying that she started it, she was the aggressor, and that she was just trying to make him look bad to her family. He even went as far as showing Molly's mother videos of Molly that he had taken during other arguments the two had had to show that she was the crazy one, she was the irrational one, not him. I don't know why he thought this would work, because taking videos of your partner while you two are fighting is pretty fucking weird, unhinged behavior, but sure. And this did backfire on him, of course, because why would this work? So now he's at a point where her family doesn't like him, her friends don't like him, nobody likes him, and nobody thinks that she should be with him. And on top of that, now he has shown to be an angry, explosive person, because Molly's mom had heard this fight. She heard the fight as she was approaching the door before she even entered the room. So now she was scared for her daughter's safety. But Molly, she didn't want to end the relationship. She cared about him, and she thought she could make it work. I think this is partially because, like, young love, right? Or just love in general. It's really hard to admit to yourself that the person you love isn't the right person for you and that the relationship is toxic. And it's especially hard when the person that you love is a manipulative asshole who makes you feel, who gaslights the shit out of her. I know people don't like that word, but that's what this is. And makes her feel like the fights are her fault, right? Makes her feel like she's the irrational one. She's the, emotionally damaged one who just can't love. And then when that wouldn't work, he would then try to use his mental illness to appeal to her. He would be like, oh, I'm going through a hard time, I'm bipolar, this is just really hard for me. He would try to appeal to the wounded part of her that just wanted help. So she would feel bad and feel like she needed to help the wounded part of him. Like he really just appealed to that part of her that wanted to give him the type of help that she would have wanted. So she stuck around and she started to feel like maybe they just needed like a reset. Maybe they needed some time away, just the two of them, which I get that. Sometimes when you're in a stressful, state with your partner, life is too much. You just need a vacation. And sometimes that works if your relationship isn't damaged beyond repair like hers was, but she didn't realize it at this point. So she actually booked a trip for the two of them for Spain. But it didn't work. This wasn't the romantic getaway that the two needed. This was just a new location for the two to be a dick. He was mean to her. He fought with her. He yelled at her. He wouldn't let her be out of his sight for even a minute. And the day they got there, day one, she was already texting her friends, telling them that she was just absolutely miserable. She said that on this trip, it was the worst it had ever been. It was after this trip that she realized that the relationship needed to just be over, but she wanted to be delicate with it. She knew that he was like really intense, so she was kind of working up to finding the right time to tell him it was over. So with that, Molly and Josh were still together when her birthday rolled around, but they had been fighting over like text and messenger for days leading up to her birthday. She was turning 23 and she was going out with friends and Josh was going to be there, and it was meant to be a fun night. But of course, she and Josh got into a fight. At her birthday party, they get into a fight and she's finally like, listen, that's it. I'm fucking done. This relationship's over. You need to go. So she dumps him right there on the spot. He gets pissed. He starts yelling at her friends. He starts making a scene. It's just really messy. He left that night, and of course the next morning he panicked. He started calling her, started texting her, saying he was sorry, begging for her back. But at this point she was like, listen, Josh, like, this is done. This is a bad relationship for both of us. We both deserve more. We both deserve better. Let's just move on. But he couldn't. He couldn't move on. He was pissed because another woman was rejecting him, leaving him, like, I'm not a doctor, but like his mother did, and he wasn't getting what he wanted, and he was being a little crybaby about it. But she stayed firm. She was like, this is done. She blocked him on all social media, and then when he would go and make new social media pages to try to contact her, she'd block him there too. She didn't respond to his texts. She didn't answer his calls. She totally cut him off. It's at this point that he figured if he couldn't have her, he would just destroy her. So he started trying to destroy her character first, posting shitty things about her online, talking shit about her, saying she was a bad person, saying that she did drugs, and posting videos of their fights, just trying to make her look as bad as possible. And when he would post these terrible things about her, he would tag all of Molly's friends, all of Molly's family members, anybody he could. And she hadn't seen these things because she blocked him. So they'd have to tell her. Her friends and family would have to go up to her and be like, this is what he's posting about you. And it was making her miserable. She was scared. She didn't know what he was capable of. She told her friends, like, I don't know what he will do. Like, I'm freaked out by him. She was scared to be home alone, but she was also scared to leave her house. And in the days leading up to her murder, she told one of her friends, quote, "I am scared he might hurt me. I don't know how on edge he is." Finally, Molly got to the point that enough was enough, and she was going to bring other people into this situation. So she went and she printed everything out, all the harassing texts, the call logs, all the posts online, and she took them to her mother, and she's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? So her mom's like, oh, okay, this is dangerous, this is bad. So they take all this and they go to the police. And Molly tells the police, like, I am scared. I don't know what this guy's gonna do, but this is obviously fucking crazy. So the cop that Molly's talking to decides that the best course of action would be just to call Josh and tell him to, like, take the post down. Like, that's all they were gonna do. So they do. They call, they put him on speakerphone, and they tell him, like, hey, you should probably, like, take those posts down. And he's like, yeah, no, I don't think I'm going to, because I didn't do anything illegal here. And that was pretty much it. The cops didn't push. They didn't persist that hard. They said there wasn't much they could do. They asked Josh, like, we're not going to have any more trouble with this, are we? And he's like, aren't we? And he just kept saying over and over, I've done nothing wrong. I've done nothing wrong. And if you think I have, there's more to come. And Molly's mom says that those words, there's more to come, still haunt her to this day. And after that call, Molly even said that, like, it was so cold. She could hear no emotion in Josh while he was talking to the police. And this really scared her. The cops basically told Molly, like, listen, I know that this is obviously annoying to you, but it's not illegal, and technically what he's doing doesn't qualify as harassment, so there's really nothing we can do here. So they were left to kind of figure out what to do on their own. Her and her family were like, I guess we're gonna have to take matters into our own hands. And her family even went as far as reaching out to Facebook to try to get him to take a couple posts down, and they did, but not all of them, and that was really all they could do. And in the meantime, Josh continued. He kept making posts, and he kept harassing her. Molly and her family didn't really know what to do, right? So they reached out to the cops, they didn't get help. They reached out to Facebook, they didn't get much help. So they decided the best thing they could do to try to keep Molly safe was they printed out, like, a flyer with Josh's picture on it, and they went around and they talked to their neighbors, and they told them, like, this is what's going on. This is, like, awkward and weird, and hi, I'm Molly, by the way, but if you see this guy, please let us know, because he is dangerous and he is unstable. But Josh decided at this point to outwardly act like he was stable, like he was getting over it, like he was fine. He called the cops actually and told them, like, hey, you know what? I thought about what you said, and I'm gonna take those posts down. And the cops called Molly and they're like, hey, good news. He's fucking laying off. He's gonna take the post down. Everything's fine. And Molly got this sort of sense of relief from this information. She, went on, made new social media pages, changed the name obviously so we couldn't find her, but decided she wanted to start over. She wanted to start documenting her new journey as a new person, free of this weight, I don't know how much she weighed, 175-pound weight, holding her down, driving her crazy. But on that same day, Josh went out and bought a knife. It was June 25th, and Josh made 2 different trips to 2 different stores. At one store, he bought a knife, which was later found at the murder scene, and at another, a pickaxe, which was later found in his car, parked at the murder scene. 2 days later, Molly and her friends were planning on having a night out. Like, they weren't planning on it. They were going out. They were going to have some fun. And they were celebrating. Molly had just enrolled in her first personal training course, which was, like, a big deal because, she wanted to be a personal trainer. And one of her friends had, like, gotten a promotion. So they were going to go out, party, and celebrate. She was stoked. She posted online where she was going because, again, she had blocked Josh on everything. So she figured he wouldn't see it. But he did. So picture her there, out with her friends, eating, drinking, having a good time, when who walks in? But her ex-boyfriend Josh, and he's brought a girl with her. And this is some random girl that he met on Tinder. Apparently they already had plans to hang out that night, but they were going to do something totally different. But once he saw where Molly was going, he contacted this girl and was like, hey, can we go here instead? Not telling her why, but it's because he wanted to run into Molly. Now, when he came into the bar, Molly acted like she didn't care, like it didn't affect her at all. And her friends, though, were like, oh shit, like that sucks. Like, I'm sorry. Even though he was a dick, and it's still gotta be awkward to see him with another girl, like you guys were together a long time, blah, blah, blah. But she said, like, it didn't bother her. It wasn't a big deal. And the fact that she could see him with another girl and it not affect her showed her that she didn't love him anymore. But it definitely affected her in some way, because she ended up getting up and going to the bathroom. When she was in the bathroom, she took a selfie and she like posted, I think it was on Snapchat, and she was like, oh, that awkward feeling when you're at a bar with your friends and your ex shows up with like a little face. Now, while he was there, he didn't interact with Molly. He didn't interact with her friends. The most interaction the two had with each other is when she went up to the bar, and I guess he was at the bar, and they made eye contact, and he gave her an eerie smile that definitely made her feel off. But that was it, except for the fact that, like, when him and his date were leaving, because they left before Molly and her friends, they walked right by Molly and her friend's table, even though there were, like, a lot of exits they could have taken, and her friends just kind of talked about, like, what a dick move, what a childish move that was on his part. Now, how did Josh know Molly was going to be there, considering she had blocked him? All of her friends had blocked him. All of her family had blocked him. Well, turns out, Josh had convinced one of his friends. He met this girl online in 2016, and he convinced her to befriend Molly online so that he could learn everything about what Molly was doing through this girl, which is like a choice. Apparently, this girl is somebody that he met on Tinder, and they didn't like hit it off romantically, but they stayed friends. They've never met in person, mind you. Never met in person, but she considered him to be her bestie. So when he asked her to do this, she's like, sure. Like, she didn't think it was a big deal. She didn't think it was weird. She's like, people do this all the time, and joked about loving a good stalk and said that Molly could never hide from her. And of course, she was later questioned about this, and she said truly she had no idea how big of an impact what she was doing would play. She said for her, this was like a totally normal thing people did, and she didn't know why he wanted her to like follow Molly and find out where Molly was, and she had no idea that he was absolutely ass bananas. So anyways, he leaves the bar slash restaurant with his date. Later, she leaves with her friends. She drives home, she gets in her bed, and she spends the last night asleep in her home. The next day, this is less than 2 weeks after the two's breakup, it's June 29th, 2018, Molly decides she wants to get up early and go to the gym. She wanted to go over there, do a little workout, film a little bit for her blog, and I guess she had actually applied at this gym, like to get a job there, and as soon as she did that, Josh mysteriously started going to this gym, and he would go at all hours of the day just trying to see her, trying to run into her. And on this day, he would run into Molly, but it wouldn't be by chance. The morning of her murder, Molly and her mother ran into each other, and they would do this thing, which just breaks my heart, where like, Molly's mom would be like, I love you, and Molly would be like, I love you more, and her mom would be like, I love you mostest. And she said that this is normally where it would stop. I love you more, I love you mostest. But on this morning, the two just kept going and kept going. And this would be the last conversation she'd ever have with her daughter. So Molly gets to the gym at about 10 a.m. and you can see video surveillance of this. There's video surveillance of all of like the gym interaction, and she goes in. It's a pretty empty gym. There's like nobody else there. She goes to a certain area. She puts down her stuff. She starts doing her workout. When after a little bit of time, Josh walks in, and even though the whole gym is basically empty, he sets up his stuff right next to Molly. She was obviously not into it. She takes a photo of him when he's not looking. She sends it to her mom and was like, what the fuck? Like, he's here and he just set up right next to me. And she sits there and she realizes, like, he must be following me. He must be watching me, because she didn't even post. She hadn't even posted anywhere online that she was going here. There was no way for him to know. She decides at this point to confront him. She goes up to him and is kind of like, why are you here? Why aren't you at work? And he just tells her, like, that's none of your business. So she's like, cool, fine, maybe it isn't. And just like grabs her shit and moves to a different area of the gym away from him. Now, all the while, she's texting her mom and her friend because she doesn't know what to do here. She's in an awkward situation. So Josh is there for a little bit, and then he leaves. He leaves before her, and she's just sitting there, not sure what to do, because that was such a weird interaction. Like, he wasn't even there long enough to get a workout. It's like he came there just to intimidate her. So she doesn't know what to do. She's sitting there. She's texting her mom. She's texting her friend. And they tell her, like, you know what? Just leave. Get in your car and go straight home. So she does. She gathers her stuff and she walks out. And while she's leaving, she texts her friend saying, quote, I feel like I'm always fucking looking over my shoulder. And her friend responded to her like, don't worry about him. He's just a psycho. Having no idea that Molly really did need to worry about him, because he was still there in his car circling the parking lot like a shark. Molly got into her car, but before she had a chance to start the car or drive away, Josh comes up to her car, he rips open her car door, and he just starts attacking her. He stabs her over and over. She, freaks out. She tries to move to the passenger seat, tries to get out, but it's no use. She has wounds to her face, her neck, her hands. He stabbed her almost 80 times. He slit her throat. He destroyed her. And people saw this. This was in public. One of the people who saw it said that the attack looked like a frenzy. This person said of the attack, quote, "The male was continuously stabbing the female in the neck and head area, but mainly around the neck. It was like a frenzy. He was doing it again and again." People tried to help Molly. One person went up to the car and grabbed the car door and slammed it into his legs to try to hurt him, to get him to stop, but it was no use. Another person went over and actually tried to physically grab his legs and rip him off of her, but they couldn't get a grip on him because there was so much blood. And another person went and blocked him in with their car and just started honking like crazy, but he didn't stop. He attacked her until he felt like he was done. And when he was done, he just backed out of the car, covered in blood, said nothing, and just started pacing back and forth around the parking lot until the police arrived, and obviously he was arrested. Meanwhile, her mom and her friend are waiting to hear back from her. This makes me want to cry, but they're waiting to hear back from her, and they just figure that, she's driving because Molly had opened text messages but didn't respond to them, and they figured she was just driving home. But as the minutes ticked by and she still hadn't contacted them, they were getting a little nervous. And then Molly's mom gets reached out to by a friend of either hers or Molly's, and they're like, "Did you see the news? Did you see what's happening near Molly's gym?" Shortly after that, police arrived at Molly's mom's house to let her know that her only daughter had been murdered, and she had to take this news, and then she had to deliver this news. She had to call her son. She had to call her husband, Molly's dad, who was away on a boat 100 miles away for work. I guess he was on a ship off of Senegal, and when he got the news, his wife had emailed him and said, "Call me immediately." And in his mind, he was just like, what the fuck could this be, And then to find out that this is what it was while you're so far away, I cannot even imagine being him. When her friends, her family, the community realized what happened here, they were just shocked. Everyone has a best friend, a daughter, a cousin, a sister. She was so young, and her death really resonated with so many people. The parking spot where she was killed quickly became a shrine to her, with flowers, stuffed animals, minion balloons, all surrounding her name, Molly. 7 months after her murder, the trial began, and Josh entered the courtroom sobbing as he entered his plea of not guilty based on diminished capacity. Josh was basically saying that he had a personality disorder that caused him to do what he did, and so he wasn't legally responsible. And this was a defense for murder, so if he had been able to prove, if it had been proven that this was true, he could be convicted of manslaughter instead of murder. Because, he wasn't going to get away scot-free from this, right? Nobody was denying that he did it. They were just challenging as to the why. Why did he do it? So he was given a mental health evaluation, obviously. He was actually given 2, one for the defense, one for the prosecution. And the defense's doctor confirmed what Josh said. They said, yes, he had a personality disorder. He had borderline personality disorder. And that, combined with the issues he had from his mother abandoning him, made him snap when Molly rejected him. The prosecution's attorney disagreed, though. They were like, listen, there is no sign of mental defect here, and definitely not a mental defect to the point that he would not be legally responsible for murdering a 23-year-old girl in broad daylight in her car unprovoked. They said instead he was an immature, vain narcissist. And that sounds pretty fucking spot on to me, considering Josh has shown no remorse for killing Molly. The prosecution had a strong case too, right? They had all this lead up. They had all the calls, the texts, the threats, the posts online. They had him buying the murder weapon just days before her murder. And they were also able to talk about his previous history with stalking. Because this wasn't new for him. So the thing about Josh is that when he was dating, he would get into these, little situationships with these girls, and he would get way too attached and way too intense way too quickly, and oftentimes it would be too much for these girls and they would try to bow out. For example, there was one girl he met online. They talked for a bit, they met in person. She realized that it wasn't for him, so she, let him down gently, but he wouldn't have it. So just like with Molly, he started calling her over and over, texting her over and over, showing up at places she was that she didn't tell him she would be. He sent her photos of her home, her backyard, even though she hadn't told him where she lived. He sent her photos of herself, where he would then degrade her, talk shit about how she looked, and just be a dick to her. And then while she was on vacation, he commented on one of her pictures, not his pictures. He commented on one of her pictures, saying he was going to fly to where she was so he could drown her. He also told her he was going to be leaving her a surprise for when she came home. And when she did come home, she found that her tires were slashed on her car. So she called the police. Obviously, she called the police more than once, but nothing ever came of it. This wasn't the only girl in his past that he did this to either. He had dated another girl, another girl came forward that he had dated, and they dated for a bit, and then as soon as she seemed to be less interested in him than he was in her, he freaked out. He started calling her over and over, and she would talk to him all the time at first, but it got to be too much, so she cut off ties. Or so she thought. He was just not the type to just disappear, so shortly after she tried to cut ties, he showed up at her house at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and she was like, "What the fuck are you doing here? Because that's weird." And he was like, "Oh, I just need to like charge my phone." And she was like, I'm gonna need you to fuck off." But he wouldn't. He, just like with Molly, just like with this other girl, started showing up everywhere she was when she wouldn't tell him she was going to be there. And at one point, she actually went and confronted him. She went up to him, and he spit in her face. So this was clearly a pattern for him. And with Molly, he just finally acted out on this building violence that he clearly had inside him. Molly's mother stared at Josh during the trial. She said that she could see in his eyes that he was just emotionless, and she just needed him to look at her, to look her in the eye, but he refused to do so. He never looked her in the eye. So, the jury of 8 men and 4 women were sent to deliberate, and they deliberated about 4 hours before coming back with their verdict. They had found Joshua Stimson guilty of first-degree murder, and the judge told him, like, "Listen, you don't have a personality disorder. You have an issue with women, and you are cowardly and wicked." Joshua showed no emotion as the judge told him, quote, "This was a cruel and cowardly act. This was an act of wickedness. You took away Molly's life quite deliberately in the most vicious fashion. You slit her throat while repeatedly stabbing her. You did this because she had brought the relationship with you to an end about 12 days before this killing." The judge added, quote, "You followed her to the gym that morning. You spent time in the gym, and then you lay in wait for her in the car park, waiting until she got into her car so that she was then trapped in the car when you got in and launched your attack. You intended to kill her. You were determined to punish her for finishing the relationship with you. You were seeking revenge. You have a narcissistic personality trait, and I am sure you are not suffering from a personality disorder, having heard the psychiatric evidence. You are supremely selfish and callous. You planned this killing." The judge then sentenced Joshua Stimson to a minimum of 26 years in prison, so it's like 26 years to life, and the judge made sure to tell him, like, "This is your minimum. There's a good chance that you'll spend more time in jail, but that's a problem for the parole board." When Josh's sentence was announced, there were sighs of relief and little quiet cheers from Molly's friends and family. I just feel so bad for them, dude. I've seen interviews with them, and it totally breaks my heart. Like, her dad is just like, I cannot imagine what she went through in that car, and I just wish I could have done more to protect her. As her father, I should have been able to protect her. And that just breaks my heart, right? Because how could he? How could he have protected her from this? I've learned so much in the last year and a half, that like, you can't protect your kids from everything. They will inevitably get hurt. But to this degree, and to be so powerless to stop something like this, it truly breaks my heart. Now, for some positive aftermath, because there are a couple of things in this case. First, an independent organization came forward to do an inquiry into the police department and their handling of Molly's case, because it does seem like they could have done more to help her here. And though it doesn't seem like anybody was held accountable for any wrongdoing, some changes were still made. Because of this case, it is now procedurally required in that area for stalking cases to be taken more seriously. So even if a stalking victim comes forward, tells you about what happened, and doesn't want to like press charges, it still has to be logged. Like, it still has to be on record that this person can be dangerous. Because think about it, if it was logged in one of the previous stalking incidences that Josh had been dangerous in the past, maybe when Molly complained to the police, they would have taken her more seriously, and maybe she'd still be here. We don't know. We'll never know, because that opportunity wasn't there. Every year since her death, Molly's family and community remember her and celebrate her through a thing called Molly Fest. And they felt that Molly Fest would be a good way for people to remember who she was and remember her life and not only what happened to her. And it's basically a music festival with like live bands and food and DJs and dancing. And all the proceeds from the festival go towards a foundation that her family set up, which is called the Molly McLaren Foundation. And its purpose is to offer help to those with eating disorders, as Molly herself struggled with an eating disorder during her life. Now, something that's very sweet that I saw a video of included in this video that had an interview with Molly's mother. So basically, July 10th, 2018 was the day that Molly was set to graduate from college. And so her parents were invited in her place. And there was a part of this ceremony where all attention was on them. And this is when they were given Molly's diploma. And when this happened, the whole place started to scream and cheer, and her friends were there because they were graduating, and they screamed and cheered just like Molly was receiving her diploma. And I can only imagine what this must have been like for her parents, because this is what they have left of her. Her mother said she misses Molly. She misses their relationship that they had with each other, and she misses all the possibilities of what Molly was going to do with her life. She said that Molly truly was the light of their lives. And with that, my friends, is the story of the murder of 23-year-old Molly McLaren at the hands of her ex-boyfriend turned stalker, Joshua Stimpson. I hope you found my telling of the story to be informative, and of course I hope it made sense, and I just want to thank you for remembering Molly with me today. Now, considering everything I told you throughout this video, I now want to revisit the question of the day, and that was this. Do you believe that Joshua Stimpson had any sort of mental defect at the time that he murdered Molly, or do you think that he was just an obsessive dick, and if he couldn't have her, nobody else could? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. Please, before you leave, don't forget to leave me a comment down below with any cases you'd like to see me cover in the future. As you know, I have a long list of cases. Whenever you leave me a suggestion, I put it on a list with your name next to it, so if I cover it, I can give you a shout out. I love looking into the cases you guys suggest, because they're often cases I haven't heard of or cases that need more coverage, and I know you're filled with good ideas and good taste, otherwise you would not be here. If you haven't already, please don't forget to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing the bell. I put out a new video every single week, sometimes 2 a week, and I'd love to hang out with you. Yes, you, specifically you. And if you want to hang out more consistently, all my social media is listed down below for your convenience, along with a link to my membership, where you get early access to non-sponsored videos, priority comment responses, things like that. And now I just want to say one last thank you to Dossier for partnering with me on today's video. It's partners like Dossier that make it possible for me to put out videos as consistently as I do. And a big thank you to you guys for always being so supportive of all of my sponsors. You rock. Don't ever change. And now with all of that said, I just want to thank you for being here when you could literally be anywhere else in the world. That is tight. You are tight. Please stay safe and be a better person than you were yesterday. And I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.